The newly elected Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa explains how China can help Zimbabwe and the other way around to kickstart the economies. Our exclusive interview right after this. Welcome back. You're still watching our special program of World Insight with Tian Wei, focusing on the China-Africa cooperation. The program is coming to you Monday to Friday on CGTN. China-Africa Cooperation Forum adopts the Beijing Declaration on building an even stronger community with a shared future between China and Africa. Chinese President Xi Jinping announced a draft of renewed measures to elevate China-Africa cooperation. In the past 3 years, China's annual average direct investment to Africa was around $3 billion, with most of the investment going to industrial cooperation and infrastructure development. China has supported many projects in Africa, like the Kariba hydroelectric dam in Zimbabwe. This Wednesday, Zimbabwe President Mnangagwa is scheduled to hold bilateral talks with his Chinese counterpart, President Xi Jinping, and the two countries are expected to sign new deals vital to Zimbabwe's economic growth. In an exclusive interview with us on the sidelines of FOCAC, President Mnangagwa shared his thoughts on China-Africa relations. Talking about FOCAC, of course, this time is really an unprecedented scale. And Mr. President, you and your entourage actively participating and try to bring consensus to the agenda. Mr. President, but many ask, you know, a meeting is a meeting. What can be achieved? Will that be sustainable? How will that, being the things agreed upon or worked on in the FOCAC this time?
We should never fear failure. A journey of 1,000 kilometers begins with the first step. The vision is there.
You like that Chinese saying, don't you?
Because
Mr.
I'm
President?
a Chinese product.
You were in China many years ago.
Yes,
exactly.
I was a student here before. I find tremendous help that can come to my country from this country, because I know the journey which the Chinese people have moved to where they are now today. 58 years ago, things were different. And I must look at how this has been achieved. But what I'm saying that what is important is where we want to go. And we are now putting stone by stone towards that vision to achieve that global vision where every single country on this planet has a place, a comfortable place. This is the biggest FOCAC assembly where almost all heads of state from the African continent are here.
Yes.
This signifies the realization by the current crop of leadership in Africa on the continent.
But Mr. President, as you may know, the debate is going on around the world about what is going to be the rule of the world, quote unquote. Is it going to be unilateralism or globalization? Is it going to be free trade or having my interest over the interest of everybody when it comes to trade and economic ties? Help us to understand your views about these debates.
The view of the global future, the view of the new world order, whether it's going to be multilateralism or free market. Recently, in about April this year, we signed the Continental Free Trade Area market for Africa. That's where we are moving. We are fully aware that other continents are already ahead of us. But we have done this 3-4 months ago, which means that globally, I think we are moving towards a world where trade shall flow freely. That is, I think, where we are going. Looking at what we have done, initially, Africa has 5 regions, and in each region, we are moving towards integration.
44 countries already joined that free trade agreement and free trade zone in Africa. But the question is, this is a time where a lot of doubts have been expressed about free trade, at least among some economies. So, Mr. President, when African continent is taking this initiative anew, while facing all of these quote-unquote doubts from different voices, how do you think about the speed and efficiency that the African continent will be able to achieve real free trade on the continent?
It is very fortunate that out of the 54 African countries, 44
Yes.
have come on board. And that is the beginning. We are beginning with 44, which means only 10 are still doubting whether they join the movement or not. The question of doubting Thomases, it's understandable. There are various reasons, and the stage of development and modernization or industrialization in our respective countries and economies is different. Some perhaps are making sure they need to achieve a certain level of development, a certain level of modernization for them to come in so that they're not disadvantaged. And all those issues are looked at. There are optional provisions in this protocol. So I believe that at the end of the day, what is important is the goal to which you want to go.
You know, whenever you have a good idea, there are always different voices coming out once again. But Mr. President, I want to understand, for someone who has been really working your way up in the governance, how important is it to have both the patience and the can-do spirit in order to make good ideas come true?
Well, whatever is good, you feel that there will always be some people who would spoil the broth. There is accusation from certain international headquarters who would feel that the relation that is growing between China and Africa is a new form of colonization. But we in Africa don't see it that way. We are happy that here is a country that has never colonized anybody, who today is giving us a helping hand to grow ourselves, not to grow themselves, because they have already passed through the steps and phases which we ourselves are walking through. As a matter of fact, China is helping us leapfrog to development, to become developed countries, to become middle income countries.
So if you are talking about the new order, exactly what kind of order is it to you, at least for now?
Well, in the past, Africa was just regarded by the developed world as a backward continent. But now, those who continue to regard Africa as a place they should not concern themselves with, then they're remaining behind. Africa, in the few decades to come, will be a continent that will play a significant role in the affairs of the world, both economically and politically. And the journey is beginning now, in my view. And the countries like China, we're here for FOCAC. This is a vision which people may not see, but I and my people in Zimbabwe see as a vision that will augur well for the future of our continent.
Zimbabwe President Emmerson Mnangagwa is now in Beijing, as we said earlier, after attending the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation almost 1 week after he was officially inaugurated as the third president of Zimbabwe. He won a general election, and his party won 2/3 of the seats in parliament. Upon the news, Chinese President Xi Jinping sent a special envoy to Zimbabwe to congratulate Mnangagwa on his victory. Many hope the new Zimbabwe government will achieve more development in the country. President Mnangagwa told me in the exclusive interview that he is exactly trying to do that, developing the economy, nurturing middle-class growth, and improving people's quality of life. But he really has to work hard before these can be achieved. After all, Zimbabwe is still struggling against Western sanctions and political divisions.
Now that the political struggle is over, that is in relation to elections, it's behind us, it must now take the back seat. What it takes the front seat is the economic struggle. And to do so, we need to institute various economic reforms in order to attract both global capital to come into Zimbabwe, as well as give confidence to our already weather friends who have stood by us throughout the 2 decades to continue to support us and consolidate that relationship by also ourselves helping ourselves by creating an environment in the country where capital should feel comfort.
But Mr. President, of course, stability and continuity of policies are some of the most important factors international investors are looking at. How to do it in a short period of time, that, I guess, is one question facing you, Mr. President, at the very beginning of your presidency already.
I can assure you what is critically important is to be transparent, is to admit where policies in the past were constraining economic development and make legislative amendments to improve the atmosphere in or the environment in the economic sphere. For instance, the area of indigenization, which was constraining the flow of capital into our country, we've already attended to that. The issue of the cost of doing business, the ease of doing business, the world is now very competitive in the area of attracting investment into the country. Even at the level of domestic investment into the country, we have done a lot to remove archaic legislation that was constraining economic growth in our country.
Well, Mr. President, the sanction bill are still a big challenge for your country.
We as a Zimbabwe should say what potential do we have, what resources do we have, how do we exploit these resources to help grow our economy, to help bring a better life to our people, rather than say, oh, let us cry and say those who have imposed sanctions must remove them. They have their own reasons, but we are not going to sleep because those people have imposed sanctions on us. We must ourselves make sure we do that which is possible.
What if your good gesture and goodwill intentions are not being heard by some of the parties that should have heard your messages? Are you going to be upset?
No. The world is not one basket. There are so many baskets in terms of international economic environment. There are so many headquarters on the global picture who are very friendly to Zimbabwe. We are saying everybody, in our view, should be friendly. But those who choose not to be, we have no cause to have trouble with them. We will continue to consolidate the goodwill which we are receiving from other capitals in the world. And again, I should say that there is now a transition to a new world order. And those who don't see it, they are blind.
But Mr. President, as a result of that, you have a lot of challenges. For example, about 70% of the population of Africa is going to be young people. They all need jobs. You also have environmental issues, how to protect the environment while develop at the same time, that correct the balance. You also have health issues to deal with, governance issues to improve. That's true for all continents. But having all of these together, some say it could be opportunities, others say this could be a tremendous challenge, Mr. President.
As a matter of fact, the fact that 70% of our population is young people is not a disadvantage.
Yes.
It is an advantage. What we need is to empower them. We create an environment where they get empowered in terms of skills, education, scientific. We must empower them for them to make wise use of the resources that are at their disposal. You have mentioned challenges of education, challenges of health in Africa. But if we are going to say, oh, now we have challenges, we don't have enough primary health care in our countries, so we sleep. No. Those are the challenges which we must address. How have other countries addressed those challenges? We don't need to invent the wheel. We must look at what has happened elsewhere and adapt what is good for our own concrete situation and apply it.
I remember very clearly last time, Mr. President, we wrapped up our conversation by asking you about the quality of leadership. When you have a world that has been having these huge debates, as you said, debates are not enough because debates are not leading us to anywhere, but actions do. The question is, what is going to be the quality of leadership now for countries like yours and for countries like many on the African continent?
Whereas political issues are necessary to keep unity in a country, to keep countries united and foster peace, it's important. But at the end of the day, what is critically important is the growth of the economy, the uplifting of the standard of life of your people, the creation of a strong middle class in every economy is important. Those are my views. And I believe that the crop of leadership we have now, well, I've only been at the AU for the last few months, but I believe that with the statements that are coming out far different from before, where political environment was critically important. The issue of independence, the issue of sovereignty was critical. But now you now see most of the leaders addressing economic issues, integration, initially at the regional level, but you also have to migrate to international or continental level as well as international level. Yes, of course, we have big economies who, in my view, are not, some are taking 2 steps backwards, 1 step forward, but we don't need to follow that. We need ourselves to continue to put 1 step ahead and the next one ahead without going back again, as other big economies are doing.
Mr. President, what a pleasure. Congratulations once again for the presidency.
Thank you.
And certainly for years to come, you and your people in Zimbabwe. All the best, Mr. President.
I also wish the best for the people of China.
Thank you tremendously, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Emmerson Mnangagwa, the president that are already here in Beijing 1 week after his inauguration. That is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us World Insight CGTN into your search engine or check out our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on the World Insight team, thanks for watching for this special program, and tune in again tomorrow as we are bringing you highlights of high-profile exclusive interviews on China-Africa cooperation.